our international audience all around the world to the second day of the Mexico Cannabis Summit, an event that we are very confident that is going to represent a breakthrough, a before and an after in the Mexican cannabis industry. This is an event where you not only receive information, but you also get to know each other as prospective or actual stakeholders in this booming market. My name is Adrián Cisneros. I am head of Harrisburg in Mexico. And this morning, we're gonna discuss the basic legal framework applicable to cannabis for medical use, with a special emphasis as it is understood by the recently enacted medical regulations on the pharmaceutical industry. So I will start providing a legal framework, basic legal strategies, implications of the various provisions of the medical regulations, and then I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Well, in order to understand how the medical regulations represented a breakthrough. And of course, a source of hope for all of that, for all of us interested in the cannabis industry. We have to understand how cannabis legalization has come to be. It is a common misconception that it is only last January that cannabis started getting legalized in Mexico. In reality, at least for medical purposes, cannabis use has been legal since 2017 when the General Health Law was amended to provide for the use of cannabis as such and certain cannabinoids for rehabilitative, therapeutic, or palliative purposes, what a medicine is supposed to alleviate. The problem was that when amendments were enacted, it was so provided that the Ministry of Health was supposed to issue regulations to implement those amendments. Long story short, those regulations didn't appear until last January. Before that, any company that managed to obtain a license to sell medical cannabis products, because there are a few and they are the pioneers of our industry, they obtain such licenses through amparo actions. Okay, they filed an action first before federal courts and eventually before the Supreme Court to ask the government for the protection of their rights, because they were saying, hey, if this is already legal, why can't I undertake a business, commercialize medical cannabis products? The government would say, well, there are no regulations, so there are no licenses. So that's what they were filing actions against. So they obtained their licenses, and those are some of the products you might see out there, but they are few. The great majority of products, particularly CBD products that you might see in the market or that you might see sold online, namely supplements, ointments, essential oils, etc. They all operate, or they all are sold in a very great legal area, and it is just a matter of time where that they are caught by the Mexican authorities merchandising that. And the problem is not necessarily going to be on the supplier, but on the buyer who actually ordered those products. That can even entail criminal sanctions, because and this is the main concept behind the regulation for medical cannabis. Cannabis for medical purposes and any products derived therefrom are considered a medicine. And there is a specific definition of medicine in the General Health Law. So anything that is not considered a medicine cannot currently be commercialized, and that of course includes being imported or exported under the current legal framework. I wanted to start with this because that will allow us to move to some other questions and dispel this general misconception right off the bat. Before you start telling me, hey Adrian, you're just painting a bleak picture of what otherwise would appear as a very promising industry. Well, it is actually the case. I will now talk about the kind of products that can actually be commercialized, be imported and exported into the country. Like I said, the main legal requirement for any product to be commercialized within the country, to import or export it, is that they are considered a medicine, regardless of whether they have such quality in the country of origin. Why is this important? Because a lot of people have come to us saying, hey, I have this very close relationship with this American supplier or this European supplier who wants to sell their products into Mexico. Can I do that? My answer is, it depends. Okay, there are some products, of course, for instance, cosmetics or supplements, in which we can almost blindly say, okay, those are not going to pass for medicines, but there are some others. The ones which have the best chances are oils that provided that they comply with three basic requirements: quality, innocuousness, that they are safe for human consumption, and efficacy. They could be able to obtain a health registration, which is something that any regulated medication needs in this country, and therefore they can be freely commercialized, imported and exported. Now, most companies that manufacture products, and that includes, of course, CBD products, they can meet the quality requirement because they usually manufacture their products under good manufacturing practices, or they meet the traceability requirements. They have specific processes for the mass manufacturing of those products. But other than that, at least in our experience, it is difficult for many companies to meet the innocuousness, the safety, and the efficacy requirements that the General Health Law provides for. Why? Because the safety requirements or the efficacy requirements are usually met by either a safety certificate as issued by the appropriate health authority in the country of origin, or in the case of efficacy, they actually require research protocols. Research protocols usually involve human trials in phases 1 to 3. That means usually getting to test this product in humans. Okay, but if you happen to meet those requirements, then it is possible, and of course you back it with appropriate results, with appropriate technical and scientific literature, then it is possible to file for a health registration for that product, and with that you can then obtain an import permit for that product. Now, an important comment here. I'm gonna make a brief pause. Excuse me, Roberto. There you go. Sorry, there are some people in the waiting room. So here is the thing. If you try to get into the country products that do not have this health registration, and that therefore will not have this import permit, say that you try to send your product, if you sell it in the US, through DHL to FedEx, through the US Postal Service, then that is considered a federal crime. And as I mentioned before, the problem is not going to be on the supplier who sent that product, but on the buyer who attempted to purchase it, because if that happens, Instead of them receiving their package, they're gonna receive a subpoena from the Attorney General's office, asking them to show up and declare why are they trying to get prohibited products into the country. This is important because although the Mexican cannabis legalization process is going to span many uses, medical use, recreational use, industrial use, and the research related to all those three, outside that universe, any cannabis-related activities will still be considered a crime. So make sure that you are doing everything by the book. Now, how do we do that? What is the best legal strategy that we recommend to start a cannabis business? Okay, first off, it is true, and this is indeed one of the strongest criticisms against the medical regulations. There are some requirements contained in certain licenses, namely the processing license or the growing license, that more often than not will be firstly met by the big pharmaceutical companies. Now, this should not discourage us, because the easiest way to start a cannabis business in Mexico is actually to start at the latest link of the supply chain. That is the commercialization. It is way easier to start a cannabis business by obtaining a sanitary license to establish a pharmacy, a drugstore, or an apothecary. Okay, if you have that license, then you are also entitled to obtain an import permit, and to obtain a health registration, you actually do not need such a license. So you'll be able to secure your supply chain, but also to commercialize to third parties. All right, that would be the easiest way. The second easiest way is to devote yourself to wholesale. That means you are not going to sell to the end consumer, but to the duly licensed pharmacies, drugstores, or apothecaries. In that case, you need to obtain a special sanitary license as a general warehousing facility, or as we call it in Spanish, almacén general de depósito. Okay, you can also meet those requirements. Of course, you need to be a larger business, but they are easier to meet than those for processing or growing licenses. Okay, that said, and a small parenthesis here, that does not mean that you can be prevented from applying for a growing or processing license. If you cannot meet those requirements yourself, then you have to try to partner with someone who can. A Mexican partner who actually can. For instance, if we're talking about a growing license, then try to partner with someone who not only has land, but also has the possibility to help you with the infrastructure necessary to grow cannabis for medical use. Because and this comes into play because if you look at the medical regulations, only indoor growing is allowed for medical use as of now. That might change for recreational use under the upcoming law, but so far, if you want to grow cannabis, it has to be indoors. For processing license, you can become a supplier, or if you have a general warehousing facility, you can supply them with raw materials. What you can import now, that it's basically that you can import plant or vegetable material. You can import raw materials like the processed plant, CBD or THC in its raw form, or you can import actual medical products. Okay, medical products with cannabis content. So those are the easiest way. Commercialization is the easiest way to start your business, and then you start expanding it or building it backwards through the various links of the supply chain. What do we need to obtain a health registration. Basically, what I've just mentioned, meet those requirements. The most difficult requirements to fulfill are actually the scientific ones, the technical ones. We do know of certain individuals and research institutions that can help you drafting those research protocols, but we can certainly help filing them. But it will be up to COFEPRIS, the Mexican DEA, to authorize it. If they authorize that research protocols, meeting the other requirements are right. In the case in the case of the sanitary license, requisites tend to be more bureaucratic. With that, I'm not saying that they are easy, but they are more. But like I said, they are more easily met. You can also try to import raw materials in order to prepare magistral formulations. It is also a common misconception here that you can only import and sell actual medicine, actual oils, actual pills, actual end products. When in reality, a very good niche is to supply the raw materials needed to manufacture here in Mexico. I cannot insist enough in that the products you intend to get into this country have to become a medicine. That is more of a technical assessment on the part of COFEPRIS than a subjective one. The essential quality that a medicine has to meet is the pharmaceutical form. All right, there has to be a vehicle that stabilizes the active ingredient, and that's also why you cannot sell or export the cannabis flower or the cannabis leaves. Those change their composition, so they do not stabilize the active ingredient, and therefore they cannot make up for a medicine. That doesn't happen with a pill. That doesn't happen with oils. If to that we add the pharmacological reaction, meeting the quality, safety, or innocuousness and efficacy requirements, then we have when we can talk about commercialization. That would be the very basic legal framework. I would just add that even if you open a drugstore, by the way, you don't have to apply for any of these licenses or permits. You do not have to be a Mexican resident. This is important. Although we do recommend that you set up a Mexican company that apply for these licenses, and that is because licenses are not transferable. So if for any reason you want to sell your cannabis business in the future, you're not going to be able to do that because no one but you is legally able to use those permits or licenses. All right. And last but not least, COFEPRIS issues most of the permits and licenses in the supply chain, with the exception of the growing license that is going to be issued by the Ministry of Agriculture. At the moment, and that's going to change in a month or two, you cannot apply for a growing license because they are still developing the guidelines necessary to be able to apply for those licenses, particularly those which have to do with seed seed traceability. Okay, so that would essentially be it. I'll be happy to take your questions. If you care to write them down in the chat, or raise your hand and I can open your mic. Uber, this is a very good question. What about growing hemp for industrial purposes such as constructions? As of now, hemp is legal but not regulated. What does this mean? That under the general health law, you can use all those cannabis plants that have an industrial application and that have less than 1% THC content. They do not expressly define industrial hemp, but that is industrial hemp, and you can commercialize, import, and export it. The problem is that, just as happened with medical use cannabis, they never regulated that, and therefore there were no means to exercise your rights, to apply for a license, to start a business, to start a processing or growing business, so on and so forth. What we had been doing so far was applying for those licenses by filing an amparo action. It was like, hey, I'm going to apply for, say, a hemp growing license. COFEPRIS doesn't answer me. Okay, so I'm going to go to court and say COFEPRIS is not answering me, and I am in my legal right to obtain a license and see what happens. We are not offering that anymore because hemp for industrial purposes is going to be regulated, albeit more superficially than recreational use, in the new federal law for the regulation of cannabis, the statute that is currently under discussion in the Mexican Congress. So the legal framework for industrial hemp will be made public later this year, by mid this year. That said, even that law is going to take some time to implement. We do not expect that licenses are going to be issued before 2022. But precisely because of that, now is the time to start setting up a Mexican business and getting the necessary documentation, depending on your undertaking, growing, processing, commercializing, to have your application ready for when Mexican authorities are ready to have applications submitted to them. Cesar, if I have the property for growing, who do you recommend to partner with to start the scientific process? This is an interesting question, and indeed, we had a recent case here where a big Mexican company that is devoted to agribusiness is actually looking for someone for internet. Either operate the land in a joint venture, or who buys the crops for them, who buys the plant for them for manufacturing in the US or elsewhere. So based on that, what we usually recommend is to partner with someone that doesn't only have capital, okay, but who also have the technical expertise to make your business grow. Now, the other side of the coin is that these companies, in exchange for the technical expertise, usually require you to have your licenses already, to apply for your licenses. I know this is a big leap of faith, but in their understanding, they are like, hey, anyone can have land, anyone can even have facilities. But someone who already has a licenses will spare me from the hassle of dealing with the regulatory environment in a country I do not know. So I just have to provide. So I just go in there directly and provide my technical expertise. So those who have land plus the growing licenses will have an advantage over those who do not. Okay, this is purely based on our experience. Of course, that might change and goes from case to case basis, but we have seen that pattern before. Now, Susana, are there any cannabis products from any brand approved by the FDA? The only one we know about is Epidiolex, and we are almost certain. And our friends in Logic share this opinion. We're almost certain that it's only a matter of time before they seek the health registration to be able to export their product into Mexico. Other than that, we haven't heard of any other FDA products. Now, do not be discouraged. and I'm going to go a little bit beyond your question. The fact that you're not approved by the FDA doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to meet to meet the technical requirements to be considered medicine under the general health law. This goes on a case-to-case basis. It's all about hiring the right technical people who can assess your documents and then help us prepare your application for a health registration. Okay. Lastly, and back to your question, yes, a lot of those products are announced as FDA approved, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to qualify as medicine. Remember that the FDA, and this has been an issue in the US, the FDA also approves supplements. Okay, so Analora, if I have land and I want to look for a foreign investor, can we get the license together? Or if it is different because of a foreigner? No, on the contrary, there are no specific requirements or specific legal requirements that you have to be Mexican or a Mexican company in order to partner or even to apply for a license. What I mentioned before, that it's preferable to set up a Mexican corporation or a Mexican private equity firm, which are the main legal forms of partnership that we recommend, is because even though the law doesn't tell you, hey, you have to be Mexican, when you look at the requirements in the medical regulations, you see that some of the requirements can only be met by Mexican companies, hence our recommendation. Now from Cesar, yes, I have already started the process for obtaining a license, so that's great. And I'm currently working on the proposals to the government and business plan. So you're interested in partnering with a laboratory that already processes cannabis in order to produce a national product. Exactly. This is the right mindset. The fact that you can only undertake or devote yourself to a single link in the supply chain at that time doesn't mean that you cannot cover other parts of the business. Remember, we can help you with that. Contracting or licensing in this respect is essential. But for us to be of most help to you, you have to tell us exactly what you need or what your business expectations are, which is where the business plan comes into play. Okay. There is no information on the coffee press page to obtain licenses. Yes, and that's the reason why we are able here to bring food to our people. So where can you find information in I'm a Foreigner? Well, we can help you with that. Our firm, for instance, has an awarded blog where we publish any news regarding the cannabis industry in Mexico and abroad. It's called the Canna Law blog. We are also open to offer we have an hour initial consultations for that. But yes, it is true, and that is a very big problem, especially under a pandemic. We have to understand something here, people. We're dealing with a government that suddenly legalized cannabis, but whose different organs are underfunded and utterly lacking cannabis education. It will be our job as stakeholders in the industry, us as lawyers, you as entrepreneurs, representatives of the big pharmaceutical companies, to the government how they for the benefit not only of the business, but for the benefit of patients, because after all, the regulations were made to ensure a right to health, to ensure that patients could safely acquire medical cannabis products. Okay, okay, so you would like to start a business in Mexico based on industrial hemp as a foreigner because FDI is not restricted. I'm going to make a stop here. And this is true, There are no foreign investment caps for medical use. That means that you as a foreigner can have a wholly foreign-owned entity in Mexico. We are not expecting any foreign investment caps for recreational use either. That's going to be the subject of perhaps a future event, but we can tell you that we saw that in the cannabis bill that was sent back to Senate. We do not expect the Senate to change that, but we'll see. Okay, so yes, FDA is not restricted, also with the purpose to grow CBD plants as well. The points that you should consider founding a limited liability company, Sociedad de Responsabilidad Limitada, people, is a limited liability company. Well, there are several points, and those go a bit beyond this talk, but I will mention them right away. First off, we do not usually recommend forming a limited liability company, but a corporation, either a corporation or a private equity firm or SAPI, okay, an investment promotion corporation. Why? Because those are the ones who can allow you to grow exponentially, raising capital without the red tape that the usual, for instance, limited liability company has. And this is important because we are talking about a breakthrough industry here. So, I mean, cross fingers here, but it will be highly probable that suddenly you will see your company worth several times more than you expected once you get the licenses. It is a huge investment. It is not easy to obtain them. The timeline lasts anywhere between 1 to 2 years, but it is definitely worth it. Now, that will be the first consideration. You have to decide where exactly to set up business, because once you form your company, you also have to decide where you will actually run your business. And some states are more pro-business than others. Some states' requirements tend to be more streamlined in other states. We can also help you with that. Or finally, if you for example are into growing or processing, there are some states where we have to consider either rule of law or the fact that that the operation license or permits that you have to obtain at the state and municipal level are going to be harder to obtain in a state with very little state capabilities. There are going to be either few officials, very few speaking English, so on and so forth. Also, you have to consider your supply chains. Okay, if you locate yourself in a state where it is difficult to get your product in and out of the country, then that could be a no-no. That will be like a crash course. And like I said, this is beyond actually setting up a corporation. Now, CONADIC, the National Commission Against Addictions, that's gonna be the organ that, under the new law, is gonna monitor the cannabis legalization process, including license issuing, offers a lot of information, and will ultimately operate the process to obtain a license for growing. That is true, although not alone, in coordination with the Minister of Agriculture. Okay, anything that has to do with growing, from now on, please bear in mind that the Minister of Agriculture is going to be involved with all that entails. I am not sure if we can interchange information here, but if it is, oh, great. Yes, well, there you go. This is what this summit is for, Cesar. So I think those are all the questions. I don't know if there are any other questions, comments. Would you like me to clarify something regarding the medical regulations as applicable to the pharmaceutical industry? Basically, what you can do now is everything. Of course, provided you obtain the necessary permit of license or license, anything from growing to commercializing. I would just finally add that if you want to advertise your products, people, you cannot do that to end consumers directly. You have, and there are specific requirements. COFEPRIS will tell you whom and how to advertise, but you can only advertise cannabis products because they are regulated medicines, prescription drugs, to put it bluntly, to medical professionals. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments, questions? Anything you would like me to clarify? Yes, Cesar. Yes, Cesar. Yes, Cesar. You can do that. After all, as I mentioned, this summit is for. This summit is to get to know each other and to form partnerships if possible. I would like to mention this is a bit beyond the scope of this talk. For all those doctors out there who would like to prescribe cannabis medication, yes, you can already do that. By applying to COFEPRIS under the medical regulations for a cannabis prescription booklet. Okay, formalities to do that. The application process usually lasts 5 days, if I'm correct. And when you finish up that booklet and you want to apply for more, the application process is even faster. It only lasts 24 hours. Downside to that is that you have to go to COFEPRIS yourself. You cannot do it online, but you as a patient can only obtain a cannabis medical product from a licensed physician, doctor, dentist, or veterinarian who is actually authorized to issue a cannabis prescription. Those cannabis prescription will have a serial number. Have a QR code, and without that prescription, you cannot purchase medicine. You cannot possess medicine. You cannot import medicine. This is important, right? Anyone else? Any other question? Okay, we have to think of the future. I am one of those who believe that Mexico is going to become a cannabis export powerhouse. Under the current medical regulations, you can only export cannabis derivatives or end product. However, you can import, and this is important for suppliers, raw materials, derivatives, or medicine. Now we have to be careful with that because, for instance, it is difficult, if not impossible, to import plants or raw materials from the US because it's federally prohibited there. It's better to import from Canada, from Colombia, or from some other countries. However, hemp CBD products can be imported into the country. All right. Mr. Singh, last question. You are India's youngest hemp entrepreneur. Wow, congratulations. Okay, so you have founded a hemp startup company, and you're working with providing sustainable hemp fabrics worldwide. Any opportunity to invest in the Mexican market? Hemp is not regulated in Mexico yet. It's going to be regulated soon. However, it is legal. Yes, we already have some prospective clients of ours who have reached out to us looking for hemp fabrics because they intend to manufacture hemp clothing, eco-friendly hemp clothing. Okay, so right now they are sourcing the product from China. You could be an additional option. You could be a good alternative. So yes, there's your information. Yes, if you reach out to us, my information is in the harrisbricken.com webpage. Also, our friends at Logic know how to reach me. Yes, we'll be happy to have a get together with you. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, so that will be it. If you have, thank you very much, Mr. Singh. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can also find me on LinkedIn, or as I mentioned in the Harrisburg webpage. Our office is located in Mexico City, but we operate nationwide. Thank you very much, and please make sure to continue attending the various events of the Mexico Cannabis Summit. This event promises, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, to be a before and after for the industry, because after this, many projects are going to come into being. Thank you very much. Have a good day.